Let me tell you something that most people won't. Talking doesn't build empires, execution does. In a world addicted to validation, people chase likes before results. They post about goals they haven't even started, expecting applause for ambition, not achievement. But the truth is, real power is quiet. Real work happens when no one's watching. If you really want to shock the world, stop broadcasting and start building. Work in silence, not because you're hiding, but because you're focused. And when the results come, let those speak so loudly, no words are needed. Most people fall in love with the idea of success long before they ever take a single step toward it. They talk about what they're going to build, what they're planning to do, who they'll become in 5 years. It's a feel-good trap, one that fools them into believing that talking about the goal is progress toward it. But it's not, it's noise, it's empty calories. The moment you talk about your plans, your brain gets a premature sense of reward. People nod, give you validation, maybe even a little admiration, and suddenly you feel like you've done something, even though nothing has changed. It's like standing at the bottom of the mountain, telling the world you're going to climb it and expecting applause as if you're already at the summit. That's not how the game works. No one gets trophies for intentions. Results only come from execution. Action is the only real currency in this world. That means putting in the hours no one sees, showing up when it's inconvenient, staying consistent when no one's watching. It means creating systems, not stories. The market doesn't care how badly you want it. It cares about what you've built, what you can deliver, and what problem you solve better than anyone else. Every hour you spend planning and dreaming without doing is an hour someone else out there is grinding, learning, testing, failing, improving. They're getting ahead. You're just rehearsing your speech. There's a reason why the people who accomplish the most often say the least while they're in the process. It's not because they're secretive, it's because they're too busy doing. The work demands their attention, talking slows them down, and more importantly, they understand that results speak louder than any pitch. They don't need to convince you with words when their output is undeniable. We live in a culture where social media rewards appearances over substance. You can post a gym selfie and be treated like an athlete even if you never train. You can post a photo of a borrowed car and get praised like you own it, but none of it matters in real life. You can't fake results. When the scoreboard lights up, it won't show how many times you said you were going to work. It'll show whether you actually did. This principle applies across everything: business, fitness, relationships, skill building. The more time you spend announcing your moves, the less time you have to make them. There's a psychological reason why this happens. It's called the intention-action gap. When you share a goal out loud, your brain receives a hit of dopamine, the same kind of satisfaction you'd get from actually completing a task. It feels productive. But the problem is it's an illusion. You haven't done the work yet. And now, because your brain feels rewarded prematurely, you've lost some of the internal pressure and drive that would have actually pushed you to execute. So the more you talk about what you're going to do, the less likely you are to follow through. The best move: say less, do more. Think of someone who made a massive impact, not by talking, but by delivering. A great example is an athlete like Kobe Bryant. In his prime, you didn't see him constantly talking about how he was going to dominate. He didn't hype himself up on interviews or social media. He just showed up early every day and put in the reps. Hours before the game, while others were still waking up, he was already sweating, working on his footwork, his shot, his discipline. He wasn't chasing headlines, he was chasing greatness. And when the results came, championships, MVPs, respect, it wasn't a surprise. It was the natural byproduct of relentless, consistent action behind closed doors. The lesson is simple. If you want to be respected, stop asking for attention and start earning results. Don't tell them you're going to be the best, become the best. Don't announce the business you're going to build, build it. Don't list the habits you're going to start, live them. People are impressed by finished products, not by declarations. They remember outcomes, not ideas. Talking can feel like momentum, but it's not. It's static. Real movement is built in silence. In the reps no one counts, the hours no one sees, the discipline that doesn't get likes. The world doesn't need more talkers. It needs more doers. And here's the truth that separates the winners from the rest. The ones who succeed don't need external validation to move forward. Their validation comes from progress, from execution, from knowing that they are without a doubt better today than they were yesterday. So if you're serious about your goal, whatever it is, keep it quiet and get to work. Wake up before the world and clock in the hours when no one is looking. Stack progress, not promises. And when the results come, let them speak so loudly that the same people who didn't believe you now ask how you did it. Not because you told them you would, because you showed them. Success doesn't come from craving attention. It comes from obsession, the kind that makes you forget the world is watching, the kind that fuels you in silence long after everyone else has quit. The problem is, too many people confuse being seen with being successful. They think posting about progress is the same as making it. They believe looking the part is just as good as earning it, but it's not. Attention is short-lived. It's fickle. It fades. Obsession, though, that builds legacies. It builds skills, systems, results. And the truth is, you can't chase both at the same time. One is about your ego. The other is about your future. You have to choose. The people who actually make it, the ones who hit the numbers, crush the goals, and dominate their space, don't spend their time showing off what they're doing. They're too deep in the work to stop and brag. They don't care if anyone's clapping because they're not performing, they're building. Obsession doesn't need an audience. In fact, the fewer distractions, the better. Obsession lives in isolation. It thrives in repetition, is quiet, almost invisible until it's not, until the results are too big to ignore. People underestimate how powerful singular focus can be. When you're obsessed, you don't need motivation because you've already made the decision. You wake up with the mission already stamped in your brain. You skip distractions not because you're superhuman, but because they don't even register anymore. You stop chasing validation and instead you chase progress, momentum, skill mastery, impact. That's what separates people who want to look successful from people who become unshakably excellent. The irony is, attention often comes after obsession, but never before. When you focus on attention first, you burn out. Why? Because attention is shallow. It's addicting, sure, but it doesn't pay your bills, build your reputation, or give you peace of mind. It's external. And when your fuel source comes from other people's approval, you'll be forever dependent on it. But when your drive comes from within, when it's built on obsession with your craft, your standard, your future, you become unstoppable. You don't need cheers. You need results. Think about a music artist who's truly world-class. Not a one-hit wonder with flashy videos, but someone who has built decade-long mastery. Take someone like Eminem. At the height of his career, while most artists were caught up in the fame, the tours, the headlines, he was writing lyrics in a notebook every day. Literally writing bars on napkins, scraps of paper, anything he could find. He was obsessed, not with being seen, but with being great. He didn't need to tell you he was working. His work said it all. He wasn't chasing the spotlight chased him because his craft became undeniable. That's the difference. Possession means repetition when no one's clapping. It means staying up 2 hours later, not to tell people you're grinding, but because you need to refine that one piece of the puzzle. It's doing the thing 100 times until it's second nature. It's not about aesthetic, it's about edge. Obsession is not glamorous, it's not Instagrammable, it's raw, lonely, and often boring to everyone else, but not to you. To you, it's the mission. When people chase attention, their effort becomes conditional. They work hard when someone's watching. They go all in when there's something to post about. They peak when the pressure's high, but collapse when no one's there to applaud them. That's a losing formula. Because the truth is, the most important moments happen off camera. Your biggest breakthroughs will happen when no one's watching, no one's cheering, and no one even knows you're still grinding. That's when greatness is born. And here's the kicker. When you finally reach that milestone, whether it's a body transformation, a 7-figure business, a published book, or something else entirely, the people who were watching the whole time will act shocked, but you won't be. You'll know. You'll remember the late nights, the ignored messages, the skipped events, the endless repetition, and none of that will feel like a sacrifice because it was all part of the obsession. You gave up attention in the short term to gain real power in the long term. The most successful people you admire, they were underground before they were iconic. They were obsessed long before they were famous. And when they were unknown, no one cared about their process. That didn't stop them. They weren't waiting to be seen, they were working to be great. And now the world can't look away because the product of obsession is excellence, and excellence always demands attention after it's earned. So the question is, which one do you really want? Do you want the applause now, or do you want to become so good they have to notice? Because you can't have both, not at the beginning. Attention might feel good today, but obsession will still be building your future 10 years from now. Choose wisely. And if you're ready to win, then stop posting and start practicing. Get off stage. Get in the lab. Let the world sleep on you while you work. Then shock them when they see what you've built. Not because you told them, but because your results made it undeniable. Motivation feels like fire. It flares up, burns bright, and makes you feel unstoppable for a moment. But it fades. It doesn't last. It's not built to. That's why people start things and never finish. They join the gym on Monday and quit by Friday. They launch a business idea and drop it 2 weeks later. They write the first chapter and never finish the book. They were motivated. But that's the problem. Motivation's emotional, and emotions change. Some days you'll feel like pushing, some days you won't. If your success depends on whether or not you feel inspired, you're building on sand. You'll be inconsistent, unreliable, and fragile. But discipline, that's concrete. Discipline is the decision to do what needs to be done, whether you feel like it or not. It doesn't wait for perfect conditions. It doesn't chase hype. It shows up anyway. Most people romanticize success. They imagine the big moment, the applause, the achievement, the reward. What they don't see is the repetition, the boredom, the grind. Success isn't about peak moments. It's about what you do in the quiet when no one's watching, when there's no recognition. Discipline is waking up early to train when you're exhausted. It's saying no to temporary pleasure because your goals demand long-term consistency. It's keeping your promises to yourself long after the motivation disappears. That's where the winners separate themselves. Not when they're excited, but when they're tired, uninspired, and tempted to quit, yet they keep going. The truth is, if your goal matters, it deserves discipline, not mood swings. Think about a professional athlete. They don't train when it's convenient. They train on schedule. Rain or shine, sore or healthy, up or down. Their performance isn't built on how they feel. It's built on what they repeat. Take someone like Cristiano Ronaldo. He's not just talented, he's disciplined. Long after practices end, he's on the field. Long before games start, he's preparing. He doesn't ask himself if he feels like training, he trains. Period. That's why he performs at the highest level, year after year, decade after decade. That's not motivation, that's discipline. Discipline is powerful because it builds trust with yourself. Every time you follow through when it's hard, you prove to your brain, I'm someone who finishes. I'm someone who shows up. That kind of identity compounds. It's what makes you unstoppable. When you operate from discipline, you don't have to get hyped up to start. You don't need to be in the perfect mindset. You just execute. Over time, that kind of consistency creates results that others can't even understand. They think you're lucky, they think you're built different, but the truth is you just did the work every day. No shortcuts, no drama, just discipline. There will be times when motivation completely dies. You'll feel stuck. Progress will be invisible. You'll question everything, your goals, your pace, your ability. That's when discipline matters most. When the external world gives you nothing to hold on to, discipline becomes your anchor. It keeps you grounded. It reminds you, this is who I am, this is what I do, and this is where I'm going. It's not about how I feel right now. It's about where I want to be 10 years from now. Discipline zooms out. It sees the big picture, and because of that, it wins in the long run. Let's make this real with an example. Picture two people trying to get in shape. The first is highly motivated. They buy all the right clothes, join the best gym, and post their plan on social media. For the first week, they crush every workout. They're excited, but then life hits. Work gets stressful, sleep suffers, they miss a workout, then two. By the third week, they've quit. Why? Because they depended on motivation. The second person doesn't make a big announcement. They just quietly schedule time every morning. They show up whether they're sore, tired, or bored. Some days their workouts aren't great, but they don't skip. Over months, their body changes, their strength improves, their confidence grows. No magic, no fanfare, just discipline. In 6 months, they've transformed. The first person is still waiting for motivation to come back. The second person never needed it. They built the habit, they built the life. This principle applies to everything: business, relationships, learning, creativity. The most successful writers don't write when they feel inspired, they write on schedule. The most profitable entrepreneurs don't work when it's convenient. They build systems, routines, standards. They don't negotiate with their feelings. They act in alignment with their mission. That's what makes them consistent, and consistency is what produces excellence. The world is filled with talented people who never made it because they relied on motivation. They waited for the perfect time, the right vibe, the external push. Meanwhile, the disciplined ones kept climbing. Day by day, brick by brick, they built something unshakable. They didn't wait, they worked, they didn't talk, they acted, and in the end, they didn't need to explain their success, it explained itself. So if you want to do something that matters, build a career, transform your body, master your craft, stop chasing motivation, start developing discipline, make it your foundation, be the person who shows up, rain or shine, be the one who does the work, even when it's invisible. Let your discipline be louder than your doubts, louder than your excuses, louder than your moods. That's how real results are built. Not in flashes of motivation, but in relentless, quiet, focused consistency. Discipline won't always feel good, but it will always deliver. And in the end, no one will remember how motivated you were. They will remember what you built. Let that be your legacy. Everyone wants to be seen, especially in a world obsessed with appearances. People spend more time polishing their profiles than sharpening their skills. They chase the illusion of progress instead of the substance of it. But here's the hard truth. No one pays you for how cool you look while working. They pay you for what you can do that others can't. They pay for output, not optics. The hours you spend quietly learning, failing, and improving are the real difference maker. They're invisible to everyone until they aren't. And when they finally see what you can do, it doesn't just catch attention, it commands it. Because skill is undeniable. You don't have to explain it, prove it, or market it. You just show up and deliver, and people notice. In a culture addicted to image, this concept is more important than ever. Everyone wants to look like a high performer. They want to post wins, share morning routines, show off hustle. But that's theater. You can rent a lifestyle, but you can't fake ability. Image might get you in the door, but if there's no depth behind it, you won't last. Skill is the real currency. It's what buys freedom. It's what builds reputation. It's what makes you actually valuable. People won't remember your filter. They'll remember your results. Building skills is hard because it's boring, it's repetitive, you fail more than you succeed, and there's no applause. No one's watching you when you stay up an extra hour to study or when you redo the same task 20 times until it clicks. That's what makes it so powerful, because while everyone else is chasing praise, you're chasing mastery. That's the edge. When they hit a wall, they fold. But you've already built the muscle to push through it because you weren't focused on being seen, you were focused on getting better. Let's look at an example that illustrates this perfectly. Imagine two aspiring graphic designers. The first one builds a personal brand around being creative. Their Instagram feed is full of aesthetic posts, behind-the-scenes shots, inspirational quotes, and trendy hashtags. They get likes, comments, and DMs. From the outside, it looks like they're doing well. But behind the scenes, they've plateaued. Their design work hasn't improved in months. They're recycling old ideas, spending more time curating their image than learning new techniques. They're stuck in performance mode. The second designer doesn't care about appearances. They're not focused on social media at all. Instead, they spend hours studying typography, user interface patterns, color psychology, and composition. They tear apart great designs to understand what makes them work. They redo client projects until they're flawless. They ask for brutal feedback. No one's liking their posts. But after a year, this person's skill level is world class. Clients don't come to them for trendy looks. They come because the work delivers real results. The designs convert, engage, and sell. And suddenly, people start asking, where did this person come from? That's what happens when you build skill in silence. You don't show up loud, you show up undeniable. Skills compound. Every hour you invest in improvement adds up. You become faster, sharper, more effective. You stop guessing and start knowing. You start making better decisions, solving harder problems, and creating more value. That value gets noticed, not because you marketed yourself perfectly, but because you performed in ways others couldn't. That's how you build trust. That's how you build leverage, and eventually, that's how you build wealth. The trap is thinking that image can do what only skill can. It can. Image might buy you attention, skill buys you respect, and respect is infinitely more valuable. The goal isn't to look the part, it's to be the one person who can do what others can't. That means doing the unsexy work, the lonely work, the work no one claps for, because when you're the best at what you do, you never need a shout. The results speak so loudly that everyone else gets quiet. There's also another layer to this. When you focus on skill instead of image, you become anti-fragile. If the algorithm changes, if the spotlight fades, if the market shifts, your skills stay. You're not tied to trends or platforms or external approval. You're rooted in something real. You can walk into any room, any job, any situation and deliver. That's freedom, that's control, that's power. And it doesn't come from a well-crafted post. It comes from thousands of unseen hours where you chose to get better instead of get noticed. The most dangerous person in any room isn't the loudest, it's the most competent. The one who spent the last 5 years getting so good they don't need to explain themselves. That's who you should aim to become. Not the person with the best pitch, but the one with the most proven ability. That's who gets hired, that's who gets funded, that's who wins. So if you're serious about growth, shift your focus. Stop asking how to look successful. Start asking how to become uncommonly skilled. Study harder, practice more, get feedback, stay in the lab, build so much competence in silence that when you finally step on stage, there's no question, no doubt, just delivery. The world will wonder where you came from, and you'll know exactly where. The quiet hours, the repetitions, the obsession with craft. Image is short-term. Skill is forever. Choose wisely. In life, words are cheap. Everyone talks about their plans, their dreams, their ambitions. They post about their hustle, their sacrifices, and their so-called progress. They flood timelines with declarations of how hard they're working, how close they are to the top, how great they'll become. But at the end of the day, none of it matters if there's no proof. Results are the only language that speaks clearly, universally, and without argument. You don't need to justify your late nights when your work is elite. You don't have to explain the grind when your body, your business, your bank account, or your skill set tells the story better than you ever could. When you let results do the talking, they hit harder than any caption, quote, or motivational post ever could. Because they're real, and real always wins. Most people are obsessed with being believed. They want others to know they're trying. They want credit for the effort, the process, the pain. But the truth is, nobody cares until there's something to show. And you shouldn't expect them to. It's not their job to cheer for your potential. It's your job to turn that potential into undeniable performance. The people who end up respected, envied, admired, those are the ones who didn't just talk about it. They built it, they didn't argue, they executed. Their resume was their result. That's what earned them their seat at the table. Results do something powerful. They shut people up. The doubters, the critics, the ones who told you it couldn't be done, they don't have anything left to say when you show up with something tangible. They can't debate results. They might not like you. They might not understand your process, but they can't deny what you've created. And that's the best revenge. Not a comeback speech, not a viral post, just excellence. Clear, consistent, and unignorable. Here's what makes results different from noise. They're measurable. You either made the sale or you didn't. You either lost the weight or you didn't. You either launched the product or you didn't. You either delivered the work at a high level or you didn't. There's no hiding behind theory, potential, or effort. That's why results are rare, because they demand actual execution. Most people fall in love with planning but hate follow-through. They get addicted to the appearance of progress instead of progress itself, but that doesn't last. Attention fades, opinions shift, trends change, results remain. Take an example of someone like a struggling entrepreneur. Let's say this person starts a small online coaching business. In the beginning, no one believes in them. Friends think it's a phase, family pressures them to go back to a traditional job. On social media, they see others in the same niche already killing it. The temptation to look the part becomes huge. They think maybe if I post more motivational quotes or stage the right photos, people will take me seriously. But instead, they do the opposite. They stay quiet. They ignore the noise. They obsess over making their product world-class. They work on systems, refine their messaging, learn how to serve clients better, and focus on delivering real transformation. Month after month, they improve. No big announcements, no flashy branding, just better and better outcomes for the people they help. Fast forward 12 months later, this person has a wait list. Clients refer other clients, revenue hits 6 figures. Their business isn't built on hype, it's built on results. Suddenly, the same people who doubted them are asking for advice. The ones who ignored them now want to collaborate. And when they speak, people listen, not because they shouted the loudest, but because they produced something real. 3, they earn respect, not attention. That's the power of results. They don't whisper, they don't brag, they don't ask for permission, they prove. The key is to stop needing external validation. You don't need the world to believe in you before you win. You don't need applause to become excellent. All you need is to commit to the process, refine your craft, and stay consistent long enough that the outcome becomes too loud to overlook. The very people who called you crazy will sit in the front row once you've made it. Not because you changed who you were, but because your results left them no choice. Even if no one is watching, even if no one praises your effort, even if you're alone in your pursuit, keep going. Because the scoreboard doesn't lie. People respect what works. If you build something that performs, that solves real problems, that delivers real value, the same world that ignored you will suddenly act like they always believed. But by then, you won't care. You won't need the validation. Because you'll know what it took, you'll know how much of it was built in silence, and your results will speak louder than you ever could. When your work is lead, you don't have to explain why you're different. When your product delivers, you don't have to convince people to buy. When your body is transformed, you don't have to beg for respect. The output does the outreach. The numbers, the progress, the transformation, those are your loudest advocates. And the best part? They never lie. You can fake confidence, you can fake effort, but you can't fake results. So the question becomes, are you willing to be quiet while you build? Are you okay with being doubted while you improve? Can you stay focused long enough to let the end product do the talking? That's the challenge. Because if you can, you'll win bigger than anyone expects. And when that day comes, you won't need to say, "I told you so." Your results will say it for you. Stop looking for applause. You're not performing, you're building. Silence is your weapon. Focus is your advantage. And success, real, undeniable, shocking success, is the only mic drop you'll ever need. So shut the noise, lock in, grind, and when it's time, don't announce it, show it. Now go, work hard in silence, then let your success make the noise.